Begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Gimel Amud Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara before mentioned about the individual by the name of Micha that made a pesel. He made an Avodah Zarah in the times of the Yidden by when they were by Mishkan Shiloh, and he wasn't far and he had an Avodah Zarah, but nevertheless we don't count him amongst those that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. And the reason is because he was very generous in inviting guests and giving food to people. So here the Gemara is going to bring another subject, another statement in connection to this. Amar Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma. Gedoyla legima. Great is one that gives guests to eat food. Sherchika shtei mishpachas mi Yisrael. That we see that there were two families that because they did not give to eat, those that were coming their way, they became separated or distanced from Yidden. This refers to Ammon and Moav. When Yidden were on their way coming into Eretz Yisrael, and they asked them whether they can pass through, and they will be able to take from food and bread from them and water, but they didn't give. Shnema, the pasuk says, "Al dvar ashaloi kidmu eschem balechem u'bamayim," because they didn't come to give Yidden bread and water. This is the reason why that lo yavi bakol, they can't come into the Klal Yisrael. But Rabbi Yechanan didei Yama, Rabbi Yechanan himself added to this and said more details. Merachekes esakroivim. That if you don't give food for guests, then this will distance those that are close. If you do give, so then even those that are far will be close. And I'll explain, the Gemara soon will explain all the details here. And then it causes Hashem to look away from the wickedness of Rishayim when they give food for guests. And the Shechina was even on the Nevi'im, on false Nevi'im from Avodah Zarah, from Baal, because they gave food. And in a case where a person does not give food, even if it was done by mistake, but it's going to be considered as if it happened deliberately. So the Gemara goes through all the details. Rabbi Yechanan said, where do we see that it distances those that are close? That's what we just mentioned. Ammon and Moav that are considered to be kroivim to Yidden. Either they're kroivim to Yidden because they come from Lot, which is Avram's nephew, or they're considered to be kroivim to Yidden because they are neighbors to Yidden, right next to Eretz Yisrael, and they became distant from Klal Yisrael when they didn't give Yidden food. And it brings those that are far to become close. We see this from what happened to Yisrael. The Amar Rabbi Yechanan said, that when Yisrael's daughters came home and said that there was a man by the well, and so Yisrael says, bring him home and we'll give him bread to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Zachu b'nei Banav, his descendants, were Zeiche v'yashvu b'lishkas hagazis, and they were in the lishkas hagazis. They were part of the Sanhedrin. Shenema, the pasuk says, mishpachas seifrim, the mishpacha of seifrim, of scribes, of Talmid Chachamim, Yeshve Yavitz, they sat with Yavitz, which was a Talmid Chacham that they learned Torah by him, and the name of these families is Terasim, Shematim, Seichsim, Heima HaKanim. They are Kanim, which the Gemara here is going to say refers to Yisrael, Haboim Mechamas, they came from an individual by the name of Hamas, Avi Beis Rechav, the father of the family that was called Rechav. So who was Canaan? They all came from Canaan. Uksiv Hassam, Ubnei Kaini, Chaysin Moshe. Alu meirat marim as bnei Yehuda midba Yehuda shebenegev harad vayedach vayeshev ha'am. Esa'am, that is. So you see here that bnei Kaini is Chaysa Moshe, Yisrael. They came from Irat Marim, they came from bnei Yehuda, and they learned Torah. So we see that the descendants of Yisrael was zeicha to be in the Lishkas HaGazas, part of the Sanhedrin, because of Yisrael giving bread to Moshe Rabbeinu. Umalem is Einayim and Rishayim. The Eibishter takes away his eyes from looking at Rishayim. That we learn from Micha, which was mentioned before in the Gemara on Daf Kuf Gimel, that Micha made the Avodah Zarah, but because he gave food for people that passed by his house, so the Eibishter looked away from him. The Shechina dwells even on the Nevi'im from the Baal. We learned this from the friend of Idei Hanavi. The pasuk says, "Vayehi heim yeshim al hashulchan, vayehi dvar Hashem al hanavi asher yeshivai." That this was Idai when he went to speak to, I think it was Yeravam. He went to give Musa to Yeravam, and then on his way back, the Eibishter tells him, "Don't stop to eat by anybody." Then there was a Navi Sheker that came and told Idai, "No, the Eibishter told me that you should come eat by me," and he said a Nevuah Sheker. And then afterwards, he gave food to Idai because he served food. The Eibishter comes back to this Navi Sheker and tells him a Nevuah about Idai that he's going to die because he didn't listen to the Eibishter. So we see here that even after he said a Nevuah Sheker, but because he gave food, the Eibishter came back to him again. And then the last thing that was mentioned, V'shigigasa oile zodin, that even if this happens by mistake, that you do not give food, it's considered to be like done deliberately, b'mezid, Damar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, ilmale, halvo Yohainesen leDavid, shtei kikris lechem, if Yohainesen, when David left him, if he would have accompanied him and gave him 2 loaves of bread that he should have what to eat on the way, then the city, Noiv, or city of Canaan, would not have been wiped out, because what happened was David came to that city and he had no food, and he went to the Kohen Gadol of that city and he asked for food, and they gave him food, and then Shaul HaMelech considered it to be a rebellion against him. And also, Doega Doimi would not have been pushed away, because Doega Doimi, because he gave this advice. So therefore, Shaul, he's the one that gave the advice to Shaul to kill the city of the Irakainim, and v'lei nerek Shaul shloishes banav, and then Shaul would also not have been killed with his 3 sons, because he was only punished because of what happened, what he did to the Nevi Irakainim. So it's all this that Yonasan didn't give David the bread. This caused all these terrible things to come out as a result. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the subject we're speaking about here, which is regarding those that do not have a chelik in Olam Haba. And the Mishnah counts only 3 kings that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, which is Yerovam, Manasseh, and Achav. Even though there are many others of kings that were also big Rishayim. So here the Gemara is going to ask, why aren't others counted? Why was Achaz not counted amongst the ones that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, even though he also served the Avodah Zarah? Because Achaz is between 2 tzaddikim, which are Ben Yisam L'Chizkiyahu. Between Yisam and Chizkiyahu, his father and his son. So therefore, he's not counted amongst them. Rav Yosef says, that Achaz, although he served the Avodah Zarah, but we see that he was embarrassed from Yeshayahu, from the Avedis that he did. Shenem, the pasuk says, "Vayemer Shem Yeshayahu, Tzeina Likras Achaz." Go out towards Achaz. Ata v'shei Yashuv bincha, you and Shei Yashuv your son. El k'tzei talas abreicha ha'al yayna, to the edge of the place where there's a pool above. El mesilas stei kaivis, to the pathway of the field of the launderer. So this last expression, the Gemara teaches, what is my kaivis? What does it mean here when it says the field of the launderer? So ikedamri one pshat is the kavshinu la'ape. The word kaivis could also be read as kaivish. Kaivish means he covered. He covered, he squashed, he put aside his face, v'chalav, and that's how he passed through Yeshaya. He didn't want to be seen he was embarrassed because of the Averis that he did. Or v'kedamri, another pshat that he was embarrassed, then why does it say kaivis, a launderer? Oichle, the katzri, sachaf areishe v'chalav. He put this utensil that the launderers use on his head, and he passed in front of Yeshaya. So because of his embarrassment of the Averis that he did, he's not counted amongst those that don't have a chelik le'olam haba. Now, why Omain, which was the son of Menashe? Why wasn't he counted as those that don't have a chelik le'olam haba, even though he also served Avodah Zarah? Because of the honor of Yeshayahu, which Yeshayahu is his son, that was a tzaddik. Now, Menashe, so the Gemara says, if so, Menashe nami nimni, so Menashe should not be counted either amongst those that don't have a chelik le'olam haba, mipnei kvaydoi shel Chizkiyahu, because of the honor of his father, Chizkiyahu. So, why are we counting Menashe that doesn't have a chelik le'olam haba? And says the Gemara, Bra mezaki abba. A son can bring a schos to a father. So in the case of Amain, where it's his son Yeshayahu that was a tzaddik, he brings a schus to his father to take him out of that position of not having a chelik le'olam haba. Well, Abba le mizaki b'ra, but the father cannot be mizaki to the son that the son should have a chelik le'olam haba. The pasuk says, "Ve'ein miyadi matzel." It's not in my hands to save, and what this means is, "Ein Avram matzel es Yishmael." Avram cannot save Yishmael. And Ein Yitzchak matzel es Esav. And Yitzchak cannot save Esav. But a son could save a father. A father that brings a child into the world and his whole existence and everything he does is a hemshech and comes from the father. So the son, whatever he does, it's like the father is doing those mitzvahs. And therefore the son is mizakeh the father more than the father is mizakeh the son. Now the Gemara says, Hashta dasas lahachi, now that you say this point, Achaz nami le'imni, the reason why Achaz is not counted amongst those that don't have a chelik le'olam haba, mishum k'vayda shel Chizkiyahu. So we don't have to say what was mentioned before because he was embarrassed from Yeshaya, but rather it's because of his son Chizkiyahu that did mitzvahs and therefore was mizakeh his father. Why Yehoyakim was also a Rasha? Why wasn't he counted amongst the kings? They don't have a chelik l'olam haba. Mishum de Rabbi Chia bar Avuya. So it was said in the name of Rabbi Chia bar Avuya as follows: Dam Rabbi Chia bar Avuya ksiv al Golgaltai shel Yehoyakim, on the skull of Yehoyakim after he died, and his skull was laying on the ground. It was written on it, Zeis. This is his punishment, that he wasn't buried properly, and Va'id Acheres, and he'll be punished again. We had the story brought already earlier in the Masechta. The Gemara here repeats the story again with a few small changes. So because he was already punished that he wasn't buried properly, and we'll see here what happened to the Golgalta, to the skull that they found from him, so therefore he will have a chelik l'olam haba. So the Gemara brings the story, Zekena de Rapreda, the grandfather of Rapreda, Ashkach Golgalta, he found the skull of Yehoyakim, the Havet Kashadye B'Shari Yerushalayim, that was just sitting thrown down on the ground by the gates of Yerushalayim. And Ksivba was engraved in it. Zois, this is his punishment, and Va'id Acheres, and he'll be punished again. So what did he do? Kavra. He took this skull and he buried it. V'lo yikbara. It didn't remain buried. It popped out of the ground. Kavra. He tried again. V'lo yikbara. Didn't get buried. Omar. So he saw that this is happening miraculously. He said, Golgalta shel Yehoyakim. This must be the skull of Yehoyakim, the Chsiv Bey. It says his punishment that Kvuras Chamar Yikaver, he'll be buried like a donkey. Schoi v'hashlech geimer, he'll be schlepped and be thrown down in the city of Yerushalayim, and therefore he remains here unburied. So Omar, but he said to himself, Malkuhu. Nevertheless, it's a skull from a king. V'lo ichshel l'zulzuli bey. It's not the right thing that it should be so disgraced that it should lie here on the floor. So Karcha b'shiroi, he wrapped the skull in a silk cloth, and v'aisva b'sifsa, and he placed it in a closet in his house. Chazit to the bisu, now his wife discovers this skull in his closet. Savra, she thinks that what is this skull here? The Gemara we had before, it said that there was a neighbor that knocked on the door, and a neighbor said this. So she thought now that it's a kamaisa have, that this must be a skull from a previous wife that he had, that the Hola Kaminshila, and he doesn't forget her, he still loves her, and therefore he's keeping this wrapped in his closet. So his wife got upset about this. Shagra Tanura, she threw it into the oven, the kolsa, and burnt the skull. And Haynu D'chsiv, this is what it says here about the skull, that Zeis v'oid acheres, that one punishment he wasn't buried, and then another punishment that it was now burnt by his wife.
Only a woman could do this.
No, I don't know. Tanya. Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, B'shvil hatayv be'einecha sisi. This is a pasuk that says by Chizkiyahu HaMelech that after when he was not well, so he says that because of the good that I've done in the eyes of the Eibusher, so I should be healed. So when he said this, he took credit for the good that he did. And then later on, he also said, this caused another thing that he said it wasn't right. He said that ma ois, what sign could you give me? When the Navi tells him that, Yeshaya I think it was, that told him that he's going to be healed, so he says, give me a sign that Hashem will heal me. And then, so that was also not right, that he didn't trust the Nevuah of Hashem and he asked for a sign. And then because of this as well, B'shvil ma ois, Nachrim ochlo shulchani. Later on, this caused that he should do yet another avera, and that is that Goyim came to eat by his table after he got healed. So the Melech of Bavel, I've got the name right now, Evel Meroidich maybe, he sent him a gift and he sent him a letter and he invited them into his home and he gave them to eat by his table. So he wasn't supposed to do this, to serve them by his table. And b'shvul shenachrim achlu al shulchanei, and because of the Goyim that came and ate by his table, and he served them, Godam Golas Labanov. This is what caused Golas for the Yidden, for his children, for the Eibusher's children. So the Gemara says, Messiah, what they said here, this is a proof, L'chizkiah, for something that Chizkiah said, Dama Chizkiah. One that invites Goyim into his house, and he stands and serves them, Goyim Golas Labanov. He brings Golas to the Eibusher's children, Shenemar, or to his children. The Pasuk says, the children that you will have, that you'll give birth to, Yikchu, they will be taken, and they will be servants by the Melech Bavel. So what happened over there when he invited them, these goyim, he invited them into his home? So the pasuk says, Vayismach, or in the pasuk actually that we have, it says, Vayishma aleim chizkiah vayarem es beis nechoisai. He showed them beis nechoisai, which the Gemara will translate what that means, a few opinions. He showed them as a kesev, as a zov, silver and gold that he had, as a psamim, and the psamim that he had, as a shem and a teve goyim, and good oil. Rav, so Rav says, what does it mean when he brought these messengers from Melech Bavel into his home and he showed them everything? What does it mean, my beis nechoisai? What does it mean, beis nechoisai? So his pshat is, Ishtoi, it's his wife. Ishtoi hishkasa aleim. His wife was standing and giving them to drink. The word nechoisai, so Rashi explains, it means, it's an expression because a wife is taken, is menake, was deducted, so to speak, was taken from a person by Adam, Chava, so therefore a person's wife is called nechoisai. So that's his wife was there serving them. Shmuel says the term nechoisai means beis gnazov her alehem. He shows them his treasures. The term nechoisai Rashi brings is from the lashon nechois tzari veloit, which means the hidden things that he had in his treasures. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, third pshat, nechoisai means zayin oichel zayin her alehem. He showed them his unique weapons that he had. That he has these iron weapons that one is able to cut and break another. This is the what happened to Chizkiah, and therefore he caused the Churban to come in the first Beis Hamikdash. And after the Gemara finishes the discussion there regarding all the different kings, Rishayim, that there were in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara goes on now to darshan the psukim of Eicha that was written by Yirmiyah on the Churban of the first Beis Hamikdash. Eicha Yashva Badad Amar Rav Amar Rav Yechanan Mipnei Ma Loku Yisrael beEicha. Why did Yidden get punished with this? That it says here under the term Eicha. Because Yidden were over on all 36 krisis that are counted, that it says in the Torah, all krisis are 36. Rabbi Yechon said, why did Yidden get punished with what it says in Eicha, which is written in the order of Aleph Beis? Because they were over on the Torah that's given with also the Aleph Beis. When it says Yashva Badad, the Yidden sit alone, or Yishalayim sits alone. Omar Rava said, or the Gersa here is that it's Rabbi said, Omar Rabbi Yechanan, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ani Amarti, I said about Yidden, Vayashkin Yisrael, Betach Badad Ein Yaakov, the Yidden will be sitting confidently, alone, strong, Ein Yaakov, with the spring of Yaakov, Aleretz Dagim V'Siraish, a land of grain and wine, Avsham of Yarfutol, there'll be dew coming from the heavens. But Achshav, now, because there are Averis here, Badad Meishavam, they are sitting completely alone. Now when it says, Ha'ir Rabasi what does this mean? Amarav, Amarab, Amarab Yechanan, that there were many people, that Yidden were a great nation. Shayamasiyim, Ketana Legadol, they would marry off a younger girl to an older man, or Gedayla Lekatan, and an older girl to a younger man. Kidei Shilam Banam Harbe, in order that as a result they'll have many children. As Rashi explains that when you marry off a younger man, his ability to give birth is less, and a younger woman, her ability to give birth is less. So in order to make the ability to give birth more, so they would marry off an older man to a younger woman, that would make it more possible for her to give birth, and the same thing vice versa, a younger man to an older woman, or a older man to a younger woman, which makes it easier and quicker to give birth. When it says in the pasuk that Yidden are like an almana, like a widow, so it says ke almana, like a widow. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav ke almana, the Yidden are only like an almana, v'loi almana mamish, but not literally an almana, ela ki isha shaholach baila l'medina sayam, but only like a woman that her husband went overseas, or he went, but Yidden are not completely disconnected from the Eibishter. The Eibishter has been Medina Sayam, but Yidden are really still connected to the Eibishter. V'dai talachser eleh, and the Eibishter is going to return to us. So here you see the Gemara is darshaning, the lashon of the pasuk, that it says in Eicha, that it brings out also the positive point about the fact that even in a time of Galus, Yidden remain connected to the Eibishter. Rebbe speaks about this Inyan also Barichas and Asichah and Parshas Kiseitze. This idea of Ke Almana, that Yidden always remain connected, and in a way even stronger in the time of Galus. Rabasi Bagoyim, Sarasi Bamedinos. So here the Gemara will dash in these words in Eicha also in the positive. The Yidden are great amongst nations and ministers in all the countries. So Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Kol Makim Shein Helchen. Wherever Yidden go in Galus, Nasin, Saran Ladineim. They become like ministers to their masters. And the Gemara here will bring a story that will express this idea, the wisdom of Yidden wherever they go, even in the time of Galus. Tan Rabbanon, we learned in the Braise, Maise, B'shnei B'nei Yodam Shenishbu Bahara Carmel. There was a story with two Yidden that were captured in Har Carmel in Eretz Yisrael. V'hoya shaboy mahalach achreim. Their captor was walking behind them. So Amalei echad mehem lachaveidai, the captor heard these two Yidden that one spoke to his friend and said, Gamal shem halechas lefaneni. You see that camel that is going there on the road ahead of us? Suma bachas mei now. This camel is blind on one of its eyes. Utuna shtein neides. It's carrying two flasks. Achas shal yain. One is from wine, v'achas shal shemen, and the other is from oil. And also, Shnei bnei Adam manhigim ma'isa, the two people that are leading this camel, echad Yisrael, one is a Yid, v'echad Nachri, and one is a guy. Amalei and Shabai, so the captor says to these two Yidden, Am kshei eiref, a hard, stubborn people. Me'ayin atem yadim. How do you have such wisdom to be able to know this? Amrulai, so they explained and they said what they observed. Gamal me'asam shalafanel, so the camel from the grass that's in front of it, mitzat sharaya echeles, only from the side where it has an eye and it sees, it eats. Mitzat she'enaraya ene echeles, the side that it does not see, it does not eat. So he observed how it's eating, that it's blind in one eye. It has two flasks, one of wine, one of oil, because I see that shalyayim mitaftef, the flask of the wine is dripping, v'shekeya, and the wine drips and it gets absorbed in the ground. But v'shoshemen mitaftef, the oil is dripping, v'tzaf, and the oil does not get absorbed. It floats on the ground. That's what he observed when he saw this. Shnei bnei Adam manhigim. So the two people that are leading it, echad Nachri, v'echad Yisrael, one's a guy, one's a Yid, because Nachri nifna l'derech, the guy relieves himself there on the road, not in a tzniizdik manner. But v'Yisrael, a Yid, which behaves tzniizdik, nifna l'tzdadim, he goes and relieves himself, he goes to the side of the road. So now this Shaboy, this captor that will capture these two Yidden, radaf achreim, he ran after the camel to see if it's true. Umatza kedevreim, and he found that what they said is true. Ba v'noshkan al roishan, he came and he kissed them on their head, and v'hevi and lebeisa, he brought them into his home, v'asalem suda, and he prepared a meal for these two Yidden that he captured, v'hayimeraked lefneim, and he danced in front of them, in front of the two Yidden. Now there's a continuation of this story, which Rashi quotes, and you have it over here, quoted in the side in Eis Beis, at least in this version of the Gemara. Yeah, the continuation of the Gemara of the story. I'm going to read it over here quickly. Take a look in Agaz with Tziyunim, Eis Beis. Now, Amrullah, these two Yidden said to their captor, it seems to us that you are the son of Klastera, which was the king, meaning Shal Melachu. You have the image of a king. So Halach, this captor went, Vishal Imai asked his mother, is this true? Amallah, his mother said to him, and now the captor that is said to his mother, Im at Magadas li mutav, if you tell me the truth about this is good. If not, I'm going to kill you. So Amallah, his mother said to him, Beni, my son, Bishas Chopeh, at the time of the Chopeh, I got married to my husband, Yotza Baila, my husband went out, V'nichnes klasta shel melech or ba'alev v'sabra mimenu, and the king came in, and I had a relation with him, and I became pregnant, and you are really a son of the king. So what the Yidden said turned out to be true. Now, then, Hevid lehem basar, this captor brought meat to serve to the two Yidden that he captured. Amrulai, they said to this person, basar zeh yesh by tam kelev. This meat has a taste from a dog. Halach, so he went, v'shal imay asked his mother, is this true? Amar Lan, he said to her, Imat Magadasli, if you tell me mutav, good. Vimlav ani mitzav v'hoiganayschah, we're going to kill you. So Amar Allah, his mother said to him, Beni, my son, kivsa achas yesh lanu. I had one lamb, when my son had died. So Mesa Ima, the mother died. V'nikua mikal ba'achas, and the nurse that ate from a dog. So what the Yidden said turned out to be true. And then Hevelem Yayin, he brought wine, he served for the Yidden. Amrullah, they said to him, Yayin zeh yesh by tam meis. This wine you're serving has the taste from a dead body. Halach v'shal Yima, he came and asked his mother about this. Amrullah, his mother said, Hayayin midaliyas shal kever avicha. This is wine that came from a vineyard that's by the kever of your father. So then after this, Nasalem Kesev Ezav, he gave them the Yidden silver and gold. Now going back into the Lashon of the Gemara that we have here. And Va'amar, and he told the two Yidden that he captured, Baruch, Shabacha, Bezari, Shal Avram, blessed is Hashem that chose the descendants of Avram, V'naslem, Mechachmasa, and he gave them their wisdom. And wherever Yidden go, Nasim, Sarim, Ladineim, they become ministers to their masters. Upatram, V'halchal, B'teim, Lushalem. And he allowed them to go free back home in peace. So this is a meaning in the pasuk here in Eicha where it says Harasi B'Medina, is that even in the time of Galus, Yidden still have their greatness and their wisdom that they are freed. Going back to the psukim in Eicha, that is, Bachai tifka. Balayla, that they cry. It says a double lashon. They cry by night. Shtei b'chiyas halalu lama. Why does it say twice the lashon of crying? Amar Rabbi Yechanan, echad al mikdash rishon. One for the destruction of the first base of mikdash on Tisha B'av, ve'echad al mikdash sheni, and one in the second base of mikdash. And what it says here, balayla, means al iske layla. This is regarding what happened at night, as it says in the pasuk Shanam v'atisla kol eida v'yitnu eskalam v'yivko am balayla hahu by meraglim. The Yidden cried that night. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, oisay hayayim or oisay halayla was Leil Tisha B'av. It was the night of Tisha B'av. You cried for in vain, for no reason. And because of this, Yidden will cry in future generations on this night of Tisha B'av. Another pshat, Balayla means, one that cries at night, the voice of the crying is heard, because when a person cries at night, it says that you don't have the rays of the sun that block, and therefore the voice of the crying is heard more. By night means the stars and the constellations cry along with him. Another pshat, one that cries by night and it's heard by others, one that hears his voice, will also cry across of him. And the Ma'aser was the story B'isha Achas with a woman, Shchenta Shel Rabbi Gamliel, that was a neighbor to Rabbi Gamliel. Shemei's Bena, her son passed away. She was crying at night for this. And Shomer Rabbi Gamliel, Koila Rabbi Gamliel heard her voice crying. Ubacha Kenegdan, he cried with her, and he cried so much that his eyebrows became all wet and were going on his eyes. Lamachar, tomorrow he kira by Talmidav. His students saw this, that the Rebbe Rabbi Gamliel was crying. In order for this not to happen again, they took this woman away from being his neighbor, from his neighborhood. Going back to what it says in the Psukim and Eichav, the Masa Alechya, that her tears are on his cheeks. Amar Rabba, or Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Ki isha sheboicha al baal ne'urel, like a woman that cries on her husband of her youth. Shenema, as the pasuk says, that the Yidden are lamenting and crying about the Churban, that Eli kibsulas chagura sak al baal ne'urel, that Yidden are Eli, which means that they lament and cry, like a young girl that cries and she's dressed in a sack cloth on the husband of her youth. They're tzareh, the ones that cause Yidden the pain and suffering, become a roish, Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Kol HaMeitzer, Li Yisrael, those that cause suffering for Yidden, Nasa roish, they become the head, the greatest amongst the nations. Shanem, as the pasuk says, that Kiloi Muaf, this is a pasuk, some take out the word Shanema, because it says a similar point, but not exactly the same point. The pasuk here says, Kiloi Muaf, La Asher Mutzak La, that he does not get tired. Those that are causing meitzik, they cause stress and trouble for Yidden, they don't get tired from doing this. Like the first time that Sanhedrin came and exiled Yidden from Eretz Yisrael, Hakel, Arza, Zvulun, V'Arza, Naftali. So he was lighter because he only took from Zvulun and Naftali and he exiled them. Then V'Achra, and the last time he came, Hichbid, it was much worse. Derech Hayam Avar, Hayar, Ever Hayarden, he went and he came through the Yam to Ever Hayarden, Golul, Hagayim, and he brought them into exile amongst the Goyim. So Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, the beginning of that pasuk where it says Kiloi Muaf, La'asher Mutzak, what it means is Kol HaMeitzik Li Yisrael, one that does trouble for Yidden, Ein Ha'oyev does not get tired from doing this. Back to what it says in the pasuk in Eicha, Loi Alechem Kol Ovrei Darech, Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Mikan L'Kublene Min HaTorah. From here we know the concept of Kublene Min HaTorah. What this means is that when a person says to his friend something bad that happened to him, so he should say to him that I'm complaining about this bad thing that happened to me, but he has to add and say this should not happen to you. Right, that's what it says here. Lo aleichem kol derchem. So that this is also when a person says a bad thing, you say lo aleinu, lo aleichem. That's one pshat in Rashi. There's another pshat in Rashi. What kublina means, that when a person has a kublina, which means a person has something bad that happens to him, he should be meidiyah to the rabbin. You should scream and cry about this, that everybody should know, that everyone should daven for him. Or another pshat is, Rashi says, that when a person says something bad, so you should say, kublana means I'm saying it on myself and not for you. It shouldn't affect you. Amar Rav Amram, Amar Rav Amram said in the name of Rav, Asuni ka'ovrei aldas. When it says here, I missed a few words. It said kol ovrei derech. What does ovrei derech mean? That the Yidden in Yerushalayim became like those that are over on the das, over on the laws, the religion, and the laws of the Hebesha. The ilu b'zdaim ksiv. Now by zdaim it says Vashem himter. Al Zdaim, the Eibishter brought the rain of fire on Zdaim, and he turned over the whole city of Zdaim. Regarding Yerushalayim, when they were over al derech, what does the pasuk say? Mimanaim shalach esh batzmoisa vayerdana v'gaimer. That the Eibishter brought fire on Zdaim. Now it says vayigdal ovim basami mechatas Zdaim, that the Averis of Yidden were greater even than Zdaim. But nevertheless, the city of Yerushalayim was not turned over like Zdaim. So the Gemara asks them this: is does the Eibishter, if Yidden was so terrible like Zdaim, so then why did not get turned over like the city of Zdaim? Or another pshat, Rashi says that by Zdaim it says V'Hashem himter, the Eibishter himself, and over here it says that the Eibishter sent through a shliach. It's something that was different in Yerushalayim that was not by Zdaim. The Elu b'Zdaim ksiv, by Zdaim it says, Hine zehaya avin Zdaim, achayscha goyin sivas lechem, v'yad ani v'avyin lo yachzika v'gaymer. That in the city of Zdaim, what was their main aveda? That they had a lot of bread to eat, but they did not give for the poor to eat. But V'elu b'Yerushalayim ksiv, by Yerushalayim it says, Yidei nosham rachmani is bishlu yaldeyim. So the nosham rachmani is that even bishlu yaldeyim, but they served, they gave, they shared food with others, and therefore they did not get turned over like Zdaim. It's one pshat Rashi says. Another pshat Rashi says is that you see here such a terrible punishment of bishlo yaldeyan, and therefore that is instead of the punishment that happened that Zdaim was turned over. And the pasuk says, Silo kolabir. It's also in Eicha. Silo kolabire Hashem bekirbi. What does this mean? Like you have a matbeya that has the image that's engraved in it, and it's when it's rubbed out. So too, what it's saying over here is that the Yidden, the great, the strong ones amongst the Yidden, that's what it means. Abirei Hashem, Silo, the Eibusher presses them out like a matbeya that loses its shape on it. Patzu alecha piyem. The Rishayim, your enemies, open up their mouth against you. Here, even though it says it all in the order of the alibes, here it says the pay before an ayin. That's because it's hinting to the source of all that happened that came from the meraglim. They reported with their mouth what they did not see with their eyes. So therefore the pay comes before the ayin to hint to this point that they said with the pay with their mouth before what they saw with their eyes. What they did not see with their eyes. My nation, the people, they eat bread and they don't call Hashem. One that eats from the bread of Yidden, will taste the taste of bread. Doesn't eat from the bread of Yidden, they will not taste the taste of bread. So which means that the nations of the world, they come and they eat from the Yidden and they steal from Yidden, and that's that they feel a good taste when they steal from the Yidden. Hashem loy karo Rav Omar. The Yidden did not call out to the Eibishter. That means Rav says Elo Adayonim. These were the judges that did not judge properly. Shmuel Amar Elu Malamde Tinoikis. These were the ones that were teaching children Torah and they did not do their work properly in teaching Torah. Mi Monon, who counts them. Amar Ravashi. When it says here this in the pasuk, it means Anshik Knesses Hagdoyle Monum. The Anshik Knesses Hagdoyle. Oh, sorry. Okay, no, this is not. Let me start over again. Sorry. Mimonon. This is still here as the drasha on the psukim of Eicha. Okay, Mimonon starts now a new inyan. Just to mention regarding the drashas that the Gemara says here on Eicha. So you see here most of the psukim, the Gemara dashens in the simple pshat of the pasuk, which is related to the negative thing that the Eicha speaks about. But there were a few things that the Gemara here says in the positive. And you have also in the Maimonim of the Tzemach Tzedek and Orat Torah, he explains all the psukim of Eicha, going through pasuk by pasuk, explaining them all in the positive, that it really is speaking about the greatness of Yidden, even when they go into Galus. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to what it said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah counted the 3 kings, and then the 4 had Yaitim that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. So Mimonon, who's the one that counted? Who's the one that counted these people that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba? Amar Ravashi, Anshe Knesses Agdela Monon. The Anshe Knesses Agdela, they're the ones that counted them, and that's what the Mishnah is bringing. Amar Rav Yudah, Amar Rav, Bikshu Limnois Oidechad. They wanted to include one more individual amongst those that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, and that's Shlomo HaMelech. But however, the image of his father came to the Anshe Knesses Agdela, and prostrated himself in front of them, and begged that he should not count him. They did not listen to what he requested from them. So a fire came down from heaven, and the fire singed from their benches they were sitting on, that they shouldn't count Shlomo Melech amongst those that don't have a chelik leilam haba. That he still didn't listen. Yotza Baska v'amru lehem. Then a Baska came out and said, Chazisa ish mar b'melachta lefnei melachim yisyatzav. What is this pasuk saying? An individual. So again, this is talking about Shlomo Melech, that he built my home, the Beis Hamikdash, before he built his home. That's what it means. The Ishmar b'malachtai, that he lifnei melachim yisyatzav. He should be standing in front of kings because he built the Eibish's home before his home. And not only this, should Beisi bana b'shevash. The Beis Hamikdash took him 7 years to build, so he went quick. Ubeisai, when he built his own palace, bana b'shleish esrei shana. He didn't do it as quick. He built it in 13 years. So lifnei melachim yisyatzav. He should stand amongst those kings that have a chelik in olam haba and Gan Eden. Bal yisyatzav lifnei chashaychem. He shouldn't be counted. He shouldn't stand in front of those that are in darkness that don't have a chelik in olam haba. That's what the Baskel said. V'lo yishgichu olah. They still did not pay attention to this. Yotza Baskel v'amra. Then a Baskel came out and said, is it with you that you are the ones that pay and decide that you say that this is one is despised and therefore he doesn't have a chelik in olam haba? The Eibusha says only I am the one that decide and choose who has a chelik in olam haba, and therefore Shlomo Melech is not counted here. This is because of the story that happened by Shlomo Melech. It said that he got married to Bas Parai and other wives, that it says there that he served Avodah Zarah, although it does not mean Kipshuta. The Gemara says he did not serve Avodah Zarah, he was a tzaddik, but because he didn't protest against those that were around him, his wives that served Avodah Zarah. But here, as you see, it says that he wasn't counted. Those that darshan, the Rishumis means that what's written in the Psukim, they darshan that the pasuk Hayoimrim, they would say, Kulam ba'am lo'elam haba, that all the ones that are mentioned, even those that are counted in the Mishnah, Menashe, Achav, Yerovam, they all do have a chelik in olam haba. So they dash in this pasuk here. Shenem, the pasuk says, Li Gilad, V'li Menashe v'Ephraim, Moiz, Roshi Yehuda Mechaykiki, Moiv Sir Achzi al Adam Na'ashlech Nale Elai Pereshes. It's a pasuk in Tilim, Hisroyai. So this pasuk comes to say regarding the individuals that were mentioned that they do have a chelik in olam haba. Li Gilad, when it says Li Gilad, who does this refer to? Ze Achav. Shenafal b'Ramas Gilad. Achav was killed in Ramas Gilad, that he does have a chelik. The Eibusha says, Li's to me, has a chelik in olam haba. Menashe, when it says Menashe's to me, Kemashmoy, refers to Menashe, the king Menashe. Ephraim, Moiz, Roshi Ephraim is the strength of my head, Ze Yerovam. This refers to Yerovam, the Kosim Ephraim, that he came from Shevet Ephraim, that he also has a chelik in olam haba. Yehuda, Mochaykiki, who's the one that, the judge of Yehuda, that it's saying that he has a chelik in olam haba, Zeh Achitophel, the Achitophel, which was an advisor by David, the Kosim Yehuda, he came from Yehuda, he also has a chelik in olam haba. Mayav Sir Rachzi, who does this refer to? Zeh Gechazi. This refers to Gechazi, which was a servant by Elisha, Shalak al Isker Chitza. He became punished after the story when there was Naaman, which was a king from Aram, that Elisha told him to go and Taival, and he healed him from Tzaras, and then Gechazi went. Naaman wanted to give a gift to Elisha. Elisha refused to accept, and then Gechazi ran after him and took it for himself, and he became a Metzayre. So here it's saying Isker Chitza, he'll have a chelik in olam haba as well. Al Edom Nashlich Nali Zed Doyega Adoimi. This refers to Doyega Adoimi. Rashi says that Eibusha says, I will lock him in Gan Eden with me. Alai Paleshas Esroi Ohi. What does this mean? Omru Malachi Asharas Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Malachim said to the Eibusha, Rebbeinu Shalaylam, Master of the universe, Im Yavid David Shaharages HaPalishti. V'hoirish Es Benecha Gasef David HaMelech, that killed the Palishti, which refers to Goliath, and he inherited to Yidden the city of Gas. What are you going to do for him? If Achitophel and the others that are mentioned here are going to come, so David HaMelech will not want them to be there with him. Amalahan, the Eibusha says, that's why it says here, that I will bring, that there will be friendship between them, that will be appeased to get together with David HaMelech.